Give it to me. And then you just started fucking ripping the place apart.
Crack up.
You guys are good whenever you want to go.
Sweet. We're recording? We're live?
Yeah, I'm going to stay here the whole time.
Cool.
Sweet.
Look good?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, where do we start, man?
Let's go. What about a bit of the supply? I like that.
Okay.
The supply stuff because just gets a bit nerdy and then flow
Yeah.
off the back. So,
Okay.
Billy, as a sales agent, one thing I'm finding as a buyer's agent in my field is biggest question I always get is the market, the Gold Coast market on the southern end here at the moment.
Yeah.
The take on supply versus demand, obviously stock's short. I'd just love to hear from an agent's point of view who's doing a lot of selling and auctions. Like, what's your take on, I guess, the whole supply versus demand thing in the market? And like, why is it a hot market right now?
Yeah, really good question. So if you look online and statistically, like the listing volume, I think John McGrath actually put it in a report, it's like 30% down, right? 30% less listings online. But if you go look at our sales board, like we're actually selling more than we were this time last year. So I think there's a bit of a trap. There's a dialogue in the market where you just hear it all the time. We'll call the seller, hey, do you want to sell? Where do I go? Hey, look, we've just sold this house for a cracking price. Would you sell yours? I've got some buyers. That's amazing money, but where do I go? Right? So there's so many sellers that are ready to move, but are deflated by when they look online, there's less listings, and as a result of that, they don't have the confidence to list their house, okay? In addition to that, rewind 12, 18 months ago, a seller could list their house, and if they didn't find something to buy, well, then they just go rent something. You can't do that anymore. Like, we're in a rental crisis, you know?
Yeah.
So it's all well and good to get really good money for your house, but the biggest fear is, well, we're going to be homeless. We cash in and then we're out of the market. It might take us 3-6 months to get back in. So this is why I feel like there's a big gap for services like you, because when I have to actually remind myself that there might be less listings online, but there's just as many sales out there. Because every month we keep surprising ourselves and there's more than the same months last year. You just got to find them. You've got to work harder to find the sale. It's a different way of connecting the dots now as it was 12, 18 months ago. Everyone used to just rely on online, open house, but now you can't just wait for a property to come online and then wait for the open house. By the time you get there, you've missed out or the buyers, So I'm in two minds about it. But generally, less listings online, that's causing less sellers to list their houses because they don't have the confidence to move from A to B. But on the back end of it, I feel like there's still deals out there. We just got to get a little bit more creative about finding the right property.
Yeah, okay. And in terms of speed, like I'm noticing as a buyer's agent, like we when we're finding property for clients, like it's in and out. Like it's got to be quick. It's a really good analogy I heard. It's like surfing at the moment. It's big surf. So if you're on your longboard and you're a learner surfer, you're gonna get crunched at the moment. Like it's for experience. You've done it before, or you know how when a wave's coming, you commit and you go to it. If that makes sense. So that's one that really stuck with me. That's a bit of feedback I'm trying to give the buyers. Is hey, do some practice or get some professional help because this is a market where it's big waves, and if you're not committed and you know what you're doing, you're going to get crunched and spat out. So. As a sales agent, I'd like to hear from your end, what do you make? Are you finding it, as a buyer, I'm finding it fast? Like, I'd love to hear from I don't see your side, like how's the speed, I guess. And
it is fast. Like, you, as a buyer, that's a brilliant analogy because you used to have time to do your due diligence as a buyer. Let's negotiate. Yes, I'll buy, subject to my 7-day building inspection, subject to getting my finance approved in 2 weeks. Sometimes subject to doing my due diligence, right? That's not an option anymore. Like you can still present offers and try to buy properties like that, but the seller won't entertain it. Not because they don't want to, but because you're competing with people who are just cash, unconditional, waive my cooling off period. I'll get a building and pest done within 3 days, you know. They're not even waiting for the report to come back. They just want the building inspector to say, there's no live termites, there's no structural damage, and then they'll go unconditional, you know. I think buyers have realised that that's what you've got to do to secure property. But unconditional is an important word, right? And it's the word that really freaks out and scares the learning surfers, the learning buyers. You know, if you try and, it's like trying to sell a property to a first home buyer and say, look, I want to help you buy this. The price is right, but your conditions aren't. I need you to get into an unconditional position, represent your offer. It's like you just lose them. You know? But the people who have bought once, twice, 3 times and more experienced in it, they know. So they might even come through and they might get a building inspector before they make an offer on it, you know? And that's the market is, everything's faster. Days on market are shorter. What I'm trying to do is I'm actually trying to slow the market down, okay? Because I believe, because I'm working for the seller, and it's all well and good to sell in the first open house or in the first 7 days and all that.
But have you achieved the bit?
You know, like you might have 3, 4 buyers in 1 week. What if you go 2 weeks and there's 8, 9 buyers? And, you know, it might, in the second week, you might have an offer that's only slightly less, but more favourable conditions to the seller. You know, my role is to get all of those opportunities and present them to the seller. You know, so I think the perfect days on market now, this is why auctions I think are 28 days. They used to be 28 days because 28 days is the perfect time to exhaust the market. Now the perfect time to exhaust the market is 21 days.
3 weeks.
3 weeks, right? You know that you've sort of captured 80% of the market. And then because after the 3 week mark, your inquiries are less, your inspections are less, and so on. So in a perfect world, I think slowing the market down, exposing it to all the buyers, giving everyone a chance to come through and have a look and putting all those options on the table for the seller. But the buyers are moving at a pace that's faster than me, and it's up to me to educate the seller. We can get you the right price. We can do that today. We can get this wrapped up. And I have to ask the question, you know, what's important to you? Selling at the right price as soon as possible, or exhausting the market and getting the best out of it. It's 2 different equations there. And some sellers choose this one, which is fine, and some will choose this one, and then we go down that path.
And that's awesome, I guess, takeaway there. Also on my side, like the flip side is same thing. It's like a dialogue is to buyers, hey, what's more important to you? Is it saving you on money or getting you into the property? So it's sort of that flip where I guess takeaway for buyers is, hey, that was a really good analogy, because if you see value in a property, don't be trying to come in 40, 50K under and, you know, within that, because the agent's not going to sell it anyway. He's going to leave it to get that right price. So if you want it early, and this is where we've been getting some success, is put in a strong offer, good terms early. You know what I mean? And that's up to the seller and the agent to come to an agreement there. Every agent's different, as you know, but that's something I've been finding with buyers. Some of them would still be in that mindset of a slow market where they can negotiate and come really low ball, and you know what I mean? It's too quick for that. So that was
like
really
the auction
important.
we saw you last week at that auction, right? We started at, someone put an offer of 750 or whatever. That was the starting bid. There was only 3 of them, three bidders, and then it got to like 1.1 or whatever, and then it was. They were drip feeding it right up to 1.3.
Crazy,
you know? And I think to myself, imagine if the auctioneer calls for an opening bid and one of the bidders goes 1.2. You know, like that.
Straight up.
That's intimidating.
You
know, and I would have thought, sometimes it makes me think, would that have changed the end result? It may or may not have, but it would have been a completely different negotiation and auction, you know? And I feel like, and I often say this at my auctions, like I've started to say to buyers that are bidding, I'll say, look, typically most people want to take their time at the start. You know, everyone, the default strategy at an auction, I've told you this a few times, where the default strategy is we'll wait and see what happens, right? And I call for an opening bid and everyone goes like that. So I've said to buyers, look, I'm happy to give you time at the pointy end of the auction
Yeah.
Like when we're talking, the real dollars and cents on
Yeah.
the back end of it. I don't want to rush you then, but I don't want to fluff around and waste time at the start just to get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of buyers have a really good idea of what it's worth. So why wouldn't you just cut straight to it? It's not the market to. This is what we said last time. It's not really the market to negotiate. This is the market to secure property.
Execute.
That's the hardest thing, right?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, just securing it. So I think we need the market will change. It'll get back to where buyers are negotiating, right? It's just not. It's not now.
Yeah.
Your main priority is secure the property, and if you get them a good deal throughout that, bonus.
Definitely. Definitely. And on that, so Billy, obviously you're an auctioneer as well, and a good one at that, mate. What's pre-auction offers your take as a sales agent, or some key takeaway for buyers out there on your thoughts on pre-auction offers?
Okay, that's a really good question right now, because it's very important that an agent doesn't put their own agenda ahead of a seller's agenda. Okay, because in a perfect world, most agents want the property to go to auction so that it sells at auction when there's 150 people there and the cameras and the sticker and the neighbours and all that, right? But that's the agent's agenda. So with my auction campaigns, I always say to the buyers, would you prefer to buy before or at the auction? Most of them will say before. So that's okay, we can entertain that. But if you're going to make an offer prior to auction, let's not stuff around and let's just come in strong and hard.
Solid, yeah.
And then with the sellers, that's when I have that conversation, which is, are you wanting to sell at the right price as soon as possible, or are you wanting to exhaust the market? Which one's more important to you? Some sellers are all about exhausting the market, and there's not much that I could do as an agent to convince them to sell prior to auction. And I've got one at the moment which is listed for auction, and last night, we just had an open house last night, and they said to me, we found the house. We really want it. But we can't buy it without a contract on our place. So they said, what are the chances of selling before auction? I said, well, it's very likely. What do you want to do? They said, we want to sell before auction. So as a buyer out there, it'd be very easy to look at that listing and look at other sales and look at what other agents doing or whoever, and with the agent and say, I think you got to say, I'd like to present an offer before auction, all right? And sometimes, in fact, quite often, I think a lot of agents might shrug that off, okay? And it might not buy it. But I never think it's any harm, because it throws your hat in the ring, And if someone's made an offer prior to auction, then I don't feel comfortable with selling that property without calling that buyer back and saying, hey, you made an offer, I'm about to sell it to someone else. Are you still in or are you out? So I guess the short answer there is I encourage offers prior to, gets your head in the ring. Sometimes the sellers will take it, but just don't have the expectation that every seller will sell prior to auction.
That's awesome, because even when you're explaining that story, I love that, because a key takeaway, I guess, for buyers in that sense is you've just heard it there, like the mindset of the agent and the auctioneer, right? And that side of things, which people don't hear. So that's awesome. What I've found is, and I do this when there is an auction campaign, what I'm finding is in that scenario, you've got to ask the question.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like if me and you were talking, like, hey, what's their reason for sale? Like, would a pre-auction offer entice them? Like, what's their situation? If you told me they've already found somewhere to go, they would look at something strong. Yeah. Well, then at least that way I know, okay, well, we can potentially stop the campaign while people are still prepping for that auction. Yeah. If we come in hard. You know, I mean, just by asking, it might not get it done, but at least you're asking.
You know what else though? You're right, you've got to answer the question, but so often it's got to do with timing. So if you asked me that question on Monday, I would have said to you, look man, put in your offer, I'll present it to the sellers, but it's likely going to still push forward to auction. Yeah. You asked me that question on Thursday morning, I would have said to you, send it through because I'm about to sell it. Do you know what I mean? So that comes back to how often you're communicating with an agent.
The agent,
Like if you found a property that you like, consistently communicating with that agent is so important. And that's what you do, right? But I think sometimes buyers, I say this with conviction because I know I did this, right? When the house that I bought, I know, when I viewed the property, and then I remember saying to my wife, yeah, don't call the agent for a week or whatever. We'll just turn up at the auction.
Yeah.
I didn't want the agent to know that I was interested.
That you're keen.
Do you know?
Yeah.
'Cause, well, when I look
It's
back
funny,
at that now, I think, why?
No,
Who cares?
People do think that,
Yeah. So, seeing what I see now, if I see a property that if I was buying and I saw a property that I'd like, I'd be trying to buy it before auction.
Yeah.
And if my offer wasn't buying before auction, I'd be just staying in touch on a every couple of days, checking in with the agent. Has anything changed with the sellers over the last couple of days? That's a question I never hear.
Love it.
That's a question that should be asked. Has the seller's circumstances changed since we last spoke? Because that just happened to me in the last 2 days, where and in this market, we know how hard it is to secure a property. So if an agent's seller one day hasn't got a property and then they've found one and they can secure it, their motivation is hugely different. Do you know what I mean? Because that opportunity might not come around again.
Yeah.
So you just got to...
It's the onion, eh? I always
Absolutely.
you got to peel. There's that core in the middle, and you got to be peeling it back constantly. And as you said, keep staying in touch. And sometimes that core gets ripped up, and it's right there. Do you know what I mean? So I guess key takeaway is ask questions. Stay proactive. It's a market where you need to be proactive. Is what I'm hearing.
And I think this is part of the reason why you have a really good conversion rate. Like when you identify a property that's right for your client, I feel like this deal's almost done. Okay, but part of that reason comes down to how you represent the property. And people who don't have a buyer's agent can take a leaf out of your book, because your communication is regular, it's straight, it's quick, it's consistent. We like you. I think that gets underestimated so much in real estate. If you're a buyer and you haven't got a buyer's agent, man, if you see a property that you like, make the agent like you.
I know.
It's actually nuts. An agent has so much influence.
Huge.
Over a sale.
Huge. It's funny. That's like one of my favourite things is rapport. The word rapport. I mean, everyone's got burnt by agents before and this and that. But at the end of the day, they're like the gatekeeper to what you want. Yeah. So why are you not at least trying to build rapport with them, or pump their tyres up? Every listing I get in, so well done on that listing. What about that cracker listing you just had? They love it, and it's good once you build that rapport, and then it comes crunch time for the deal. There's trust there, and transparency, and it's probably a funny one I always tell buyers is don't go in cold and drive in the park your truck in the driveway. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing, man. Like if you, it starts quite early on. Do you know the negotiation starts the moment you turn up. To the property.
Agreed.
Do you know?
100%.
Here's a real life example. Like I had an open house last night, 2 nights ago, sorry. And the house that I've got listed, it's a renovator, right? So I'm expecting to see tradies and builders there. And anyway, so 5:30 to 6 o'clock is the viewing time. Anyway, sure enough, at 5:27, a builder turns up in the truck and parks the big building truck in the driveway, right? At 5:27, and then sort of walked around, had a look around at the house, didn't really acknowledge me stuff on walking in, and acknowledged me as he walked in, and in my mind, I'm just thinking to myself, I actually thought it was a friend of the seller.
Yeah.
Do you know, maybe this is the owner's mate, and doesn't know there's an open house. And then after he started talking to me, and I was like, okay, this guy's sold. He's actually a buyer. We've spoken in the past. Once I registered that, I thought, I couldn't get out of my head. I'm thinking, why would you park in the driveway? Why? You could have just parked. In fact, it was more convenient to park on the road. You didn't have to reverse. Just get in the car and drive, right? But think about this. He sort of stuck around till about 5 to 10 minutes after the open. Anyway, we sort of packed up, and then my sellers come back. The first thing the sellers say to me is, "Who's that guy that parked his truck in the driveway?" Do you know? So let's say, like, if
It's a dick move, eh?
Yeah.
It's a dick.
nailed it, right? But imagine if he came back to me and said, "Right, I want to buy it," and I go back to my sellers the next day with an offer, they're going to say, "Is this the guy that parked in the driveway?"
Yeah.
You know, so you're on the back foot, and this is what we mentioned it last time. There's a thing called buyer etiquette.
Buyer etiquette, love it.
You know?
Love it. Yeah.
Don't park in the driveway. Like, you actually. I'm going to give you a list of things.
Yeah.
Don't
please.
park in the driveway.
Buyer etiquette
right?
here,
Because,
101.
Yeah.
This is gold.
Just don't park in the driveway. Right?
Just don't do it.
Do not do it. Even like sometimes I see agents park in the driveway.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That just makes me feel weird. If
Yeah.
I come to your house,
Yeah.
I'm not parking
You're
in the driveway. I feel weird, man. You know?
Yeah.
Don't ever challenge an agent when they're asking for your name and number. Like, we're in a COVID world, man. You can't get into the Maccas without giving your name and number, right?
Yeah.
So if someone asks for your name and number, just give it. Like back before COVID, people always used to say, "Oh, do I really have to?" It's like, yeah, you have to. Like you're a random, you're a random, right? And you're coming into, we're inviting you into someone's personal home with their personal belongings.
Yeah.
And they don't know you from a bar of soap. Like, yes, you have to give your name and number. You have to respect the environment and all of that. You know? So,
agreed.
Those two things. And then when you're in the property, right? If there's things you don't like about it, don't go telling everyone in the open house, "Oh, this is," you know what I mean? Like, not many people do that, but I've
seen it. Oh, I've seen it plenty of times.
You know, and as an agent, when I'm showing a property, it's up to me to not open that door, because sometimes your buyer might be looking around, and if I prompt them and say, "So what do you think?" And if they don't like it,
you're just going to smash it, eh?
I've encouraged them,
Yeah.
you know, if they're going to be honest with me.
Yeah.
So don't park in the driveway. Give your details. If you don't like things about it, don't say it in front of everyone. The agent will call you.
Yeah. Give
and
them the feedback.
tell them straight. Tell them all of that in the follow-up call.
Yeah.
Another thing, right? You come through. So you've just gone through someone's personal home. So that person has opened their doors to strangers to come and view for their benefit, for the purposes of buying, right? The agent's got your name and number. Now they're selling their house. Your feedback is really important to that seller who graciously opened their doors to you and allowed you into their home. Give the feedback. Do you know, like, if like as agents, we'll follow up once, twice, 3 times. Sometimes people don't answer. We get it. People are busy and all that. But sometimes, you know, if an agent leaves you a voicemail, it could be not interested. Driveway too steep.
Yeah.
You don't have to talk to have a long conversation, but that's actually helpful for me. It's helpful for the seller.
That's a huge one in my space. Is I learned that when I was in your world, but now being a buyer's agent, give feedback's a big one. Just for that, back to the rapport thing with the agent. If you're constantly, "Hey, client's not interested, block's too small, if it was north facing maybe, price range about okay, 3 to 5 seconds out of my day," agents they actually do appreciate, and they respect you. And when it comes time, they've got the listing you want, and it comes to negotiate, all that stuff, as you said, that rapport has been built up over time, sort of thing. So key takeaway, as you heard it from the agent, it's give some feedback and respect the buyer etiquette.
And that, man, a lot of these things come down to communication, right? So sometimes a buyer might be showing interest in one of my properties, and because I'm always sort of listing and selling around Elanora, I keep meeting the same buyers over and over again, right? Sometimes a buyer won't communicate. And if that happens to me on one listing, and then all of a sudden they're interested on my next listing, right? I've already learned the behaviours of and the characteristics of that buyer. So then they're on the back foot if they're going to try and secure this one, because I'll say to my sellers, here's a buyer, they've showed interest. I just want to let you know, I got zero information from them on this listing. I chased them up 3-4 times. They didn't communicate with me. Now, if we're going to negotiate for the sale of your property, communication is important. So with this buyer, I just want you to be mindful that I'm probably not going to hear back from them for a few days.
Yeah.
If I don't hear back from them and this buyer here is communicating with us, I'm going to suggest forget about that person. We do the deal with this person.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's all swings and roundabouts in real estate. You know, you just have that courtesy and the etiquette to show respect to the property, to the agent, to the sellers, most importantly, because you never know where that's going to benefit you when you go through another listing and so on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. That's gold. That's gold, man. We got another 5. How long you got? Duck soon.
Yeah, I've got about 10 minutes max.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Maybe 5 more minutes. Yeah. That's gold. What's another?
What else we had? Supply, auction, negotiating, buyer etiquette.
What about? Do you have an opinion on? You reckon stock will come on? You know, people are saying, wait. All right, let's talk about that. Actually, the like. I've had a bit of. All right, let's just no script. All right.
Right.
So Billy, one question I get as a buyer's agent, some clients or potential clients, you know, they sort of say to me, I'm just going to sit on the fence and wait because I think the price will drop. No one's got a crystal ball, 100%. No one's got a crystal ball. I always alleviate the fact, you know, real estate supply versus demand. Demand in these areas is always going to be strong. You know, I personally can't see prices, you know, dropping huge amounts. I'd love to hear from a sales agent's point of view. You're doing the transaction as a sales agent. What's your take on the whole, will prices go down or, you know, just on your opinion? No one's got a crystal ball, but just interested to know what you think.
It's funny, I before I got into real estate, that's exactly how I used to think. I'm going to research the market and then I'm going to time the market, right? But now being in real estate, I'll show you something. 2000 up to, you know, this is the wave, let's say the Gold Coast, right? From 2000 up to 2008, GFC time, then another little kick around 2010. And then the market took a dive from 2010 to 2012. Then it turned, and now we're up somewhere here, 2021, right? So, aside from those $40 million mansions in 2010 that sold for 10 million later and took huge drops, you know, the median house price on the Gold Coast after the GFC when it dropped, the median house price dropped by 10%. Right? So from here to here, and that's the worst drop we've experienced, you know? So, and sorry, in addition to that, there was never a better time for the market to shit itself than March, April last year. And it did for a couple of months, right? And we survived that. So when I hear about, I'm just going to time it, I'm going to wait and see and wait for the market to drop. It's like, okay, so the best case scenario for you in terms of waiting for the market to drop is that you're going to wait and time it where it may drop up to 10%. But the rate of growth and the percentage it's gone up in the time you've been waiting, I bet money on has surpassed plus 10%.
Plus, exactly.
So you're actually, even if you're so clever to time the market and buy here, right? I will still bet money on that you've lost money because when you started looking here, it passed that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't understand what, you know, I think if you're selling in the market, you know, in a market, buy in the same market. If it happens that when you sold was the peak and then the market's slowing down, great. Good luck to you, you know. But most of the time when that's happened to people who have bought and sold real estate, it wasn't because they were carefully studying the market. Man, let's just put our hands up here and acknowledge that a lot of people have made a fucking shitload of money just by luck. Just
definitely.
Because you bought when you did and you sold when you did. And, you know, we'd like to say that We planned that.
Yeah.
Most of us didn't.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Most of us didn't time the market.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
what? Don't wait. Buy, sell. You know, the risk of waiting right now. I had this phone call from talking to buyers in Melbourne. They said, look, we're planning to come up. We're thinking of renting for 6 months. Okay, I said, cool. What's your budget? We're looking around, you know, somewhere 2.3. I said, okay, you realise you're looking at properties in that 2 to 2.3 range. You're getting excited by them, right? Because you can get a cracking house. You realise in 6 months' time, there's a likelihood that you might not be getting excited about the properties that are worth 2 to 2.3 because they might then be 2.3 to 2.6. Like that's a very strong likelihood. There's more indicators pointing up over the next 6 to 12 months than there is down.
And it's a funny one. Like if you like hindsight's always a funny one, and we had this convo back in November, so to speak. You know, and it was the same thing. I've had some clients, you know, were sort of picking my brain back then, and I sort of said, look, supply and demand. Like at the end of the day, supply and demand, interest rates, and all. You can't build east. Like a lot of things leading towards, you know, just a continual rise. And it's funny that they were capped at sort of, you know, the mills or 1.1, or some first-time buyers were around the 6, 7s. They can't look in that suburb anymore. They're actually priced out. So come February 2021. So I'm in the same boat as you. I really do feel it's going to continue to grow. I think maybe if anything, I don't know, I'd love to hear your thoughts. The speed might just slow down a touch just in terms of maybe more stock. I don't know.
Yep.
I'm not the one doing appraisals weekly. So I feel in terms of demand's always going to be here. Like we're landlocked, everything with COVID, interest rates the lowest ever.
Yeah.
And one good one I heard the other day was like everyone's got more money because they're not travelling. Like travel is one of Australia's biggest economy drivers.
Yep.
So there's no overseas travel. So all of a sudden your first home buyers and some families have all of a sudden got this juicy deposit and they're like, okay, we can't go to Greece. Let's go buy a property. So actually on that, that's a good point. What's been your feel with like getting into appraisals more, like potential sellers in the next few months? Still,
I feel
tight?
Look, appraisals. That's a really good. That's a really good indicator. You know, the more when people start asking for appraisals, sort of 1, 2, 3 months later, they start to turn into listings.
Yeah.
You know, and I do feel like there has been more appraisals. I think maybe, when we start to see more rentals available on the market, I think that'll encourage more sellers to list because they'll have a plan B.
Yeah.
If they haven't sold, well, I can then go rent something. And if I haven't bought something nice, I can go at least rent something nice. Whereas at the moment, they can't find anything to buy. They can't find anything to rent.
Yes.
So you might as well just stay put.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be the first trigger when we see the rental vacancy
demand,
rates start going up. We're probably still less than 1% at the moment.
It's like 0.2.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I think when we start to see that, we'll start to see more listings on the market. When you see more listings on the market, we'll start to see a bit of a leveling out. Or a slowing down
just
of the
market.
Just a
slowdown, yeah.
But I don't anticipate it's going to go down. I just think that the heat
speed
will come off.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, that's what. Exactly. I'm thinking the heat might ease a little bit and give people.
I'd prefer that,
but
to be honest.
Yeah.
You know how many people will come through opens now? Standard buyer dialogue. Be great to be a real estate agent right now, wouldn't it? You know. I think to myself. I think. Do you know how bloody hard it is to get a listing sometimes? You know how hard it is to get a listing. And how much work.
Yeah.
So if there is 30% less listings on the market this year versus last year, well, that means every agent's got less listings to get. So we're all fighting harder to get them. So I actually think it's more work to do the same amount of business as I did a year ago because there's less people calling up, less people saying, you know.
Yes, very true.
You've got to be so proactive. The sellers are like, Billy, I want to sell, but I've got nowhere to go. And it's like, okay, I've got to connect the dots for them.
Yep.
You know? Let me start looking for a buyer for you while we're looking for a property for you. Let me perhaps show you through here. I almost did a house swap.
Yeah.
Do you know? I've never done that ever, but it's like, well, this is the new market.
That's what it takes.
You just got to get creative and work harder. So I can't wait when the listings come up and it's basically just, hey, come sell my house, You know, it might take an extra 2-3 weeks to sell it, but you know, there's more options for buyers. There's more options for sellers. There's more hope for sellers that I'll sell my house I'll find another one. We'll move from A to B.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's all about price now. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It's all, and it's easy to get a good price, but it's also very easy to make yourself homeless by putting your property on the market, taking a great price, and then you're homeless.
Then you're homeless. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Gold.
I was going to mention something. You brought something to my mind then. I forget what it was.
About the market.
What was the first thing you asked me?
In the whole thing.
No, just on
Just
that
then.
note.
Your thought on the prices? No.
Like over.
Oh, list appraisals.
Oh yeah,
Appraisals?
yeah, that triggered something that I wanted to bring up. No, I don't know.
No.
Anyway, I've got a question
Yeah.
for you though. You've
Yep.
asked me a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So, being on the, call it the buyer's, you're a buyer's representative.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a seller's representative, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I've given you a couple of pointers as to what I think would help a buyer
Yep.
buy a property. So, from your perspective and going through heaps of opens, meeting heaps of agents, how could we as selling agents make the process better or easier for buyers? Like,
buyers.
what are you noticing? Where are the friction points from you or the buyers? Like, how can I be a better agent? Do you know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
what I'm curious
Yep.
to know about.
That's a good question. And it's a bit hand in hand. This goes back to a bit of buyer etiquette and proactive, I think, as a buyer. Like, I'm always in the mindset of I'm going into an open home and I've got to be proactive to the agent because it's so fast and so many buyers. Some agents are really good. They'll always get back to you, all those sorts of things. But I've got to go in there thinking, hey, he's not going to get back. He's too busy. And a lot of buyers aren't having that mindset. They're just like, he'll get back to me. He knows I've come through. So I guess one thing is just communication. So one thing I'm huge on, if I'm putting offers down, I'm always calling until I find out where it's at, and I don't really like it when I'm not finding out for my client. So if the agent can just be clear and concise with where the process is at, it's awesome. Like, we've done deals. I've done deals with a few agents. It's been awesome because comms is really clear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's really clear. Yeah. And I know in my gut he's not going to sell it under me. And that's something I think is the biggest one that turns off a lot of people who have tried on their own and they come use our services. I asked how the experience was, and a lot of them have been scarred for life, being like undersold.
Yep.
So, and I said, look, you've got to be proactive. They're not going to wait for you, but also, it's the amount of stories I get of agents underselling from someone. So underselling basically, saying, we'll get your offer in, and then, oh, sorry, we actually. Agent, hey, whether you're in or out, and you've given it your best, so to speak. So, that's a good one. And one just come to my mind then with agents is, always just being responsive to buyers in terms of there's nothing better when an agent takes 10 to 15 seconds just to say, like, hey, have you got anything else similar or coming up? I might say, working on one around the corner, and then, coming up soon, and then I'll say, hey, do you mind if I follow up next week? Go for it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Some agents say, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's 5 cents. They say, even if they take time to just think, what do I have coming up? Potentially one in, Robina or one in Palm Beach soon. Yeah. At least that way it gives me, okay, I'll follow you up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's not hard for the agent to just say, hey, well, if there's nothing coming up, that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand why some agents might be protective of what's coming up because they may want to get it on the market. But you can do both.
Yeah.
I can tell you about it. Like
100%.
I'll comfortably recite my whole pipeline list to you.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm going to list the majority of them anyway.
Yeah.
They'll go to market. But at least you'll have the first crack at it. So.
And it just gives a bit, again, the rapport thing with the agent. Like he's just sort of let me know what's coming up, so at least I'm prepared, like ready to tackle with the other buyers, So
it's been awesome.
That's good, man. Gold.
Gold.
Always gold.
Just
Bit clear.
real quick before you take them